Hey, Jim Scudder here. Thank you for joining us again for Moments in Grace. We're going to try to answer a tough question. How many animals would Noah have had to fit on the ark, and would there have been enough room? Today, you're going to be blessed as we talk to Ken Ham, the founder of the Ark Encounter. You mentioned the number of animals, and that's usually the big question. How could Noah have fit all of the animals on the ark? And I think it really boils down to the concept of the kind. Explain that and explain how many animals you estimate would have had to have been on the ark.
Well, you know, when I debated Bill Nye, right there in the Creation Museum, Bill Nye kept saying things like millions of species couldn't fit on the ark. And of course, many people have said that over the years. The secularists say that all the time. But the classification system, kingdom, farm, class, order, family, genus, species, is man's arbitrary classification system, right? Now, it's not God's classification system. And so we get accused all the time of believing something that can't be true because the species couldn't fit on the ark. The Bible doesn't use the word species. In Genesis, you read that God created kinds, and it was representative kinds that went on Noah's Ark, as we read in Genesis chapter 6 through 9. The Hebrew word for kind, the word min, what does it mean? Well, some translations actually translate it sort. So kind, sort, what does that mean? And so what our researchers have done, and we've done this over the years, but we did it in a much more intense way for the Ark. And dogs, it's really a good example to use because a lot of research has been done on dogs. And so for each of the different sorts of animal that you see, land animals, and it's land animals, by the way, not sea creatures, right. Land animals, land-dwelling, air-breathing animals. What they did was they were able to say, okay, for instance, with dogs, you've got dingoes and bulls and coyotes and jackals and pheasant and foxes and your domestic varieties and so on. But they can show how this particular one will interbreed with this one, and this one with that one, and that one with this one. This one doesn't inbreed with that one, but it did interbreed with that one, that bred with that one, that bred with that one. And they get all this documentation and they say they're all interconnected, they're all one kind. So Noah only needed 2 dogs on the ark. And they've gone through and done that for the mammals and the reptiles and the birds and so on, and come to the conclusion that at the most, now, we believe this is way overestimating, and I'll tell you why, but way overestimating, 1,700 kinds, which means 2 of each kind and 7 of the clean, or 7 pairs of the clean. So nowhere near the number of animals that people think. It's not millions, it's not hundreds of thousands.
Yes. Now this is starting to sound like it can fit.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And the reason we've overestimated is because if there's been no documentation that within this particular group, that this group is bred with that group, then we class them as separate kinds, just for the sake of argument. For instance, bats. We have in here a cage and it's got lots of bats in there. We suspect there's only one kind, but nobody's ever documented all these different species breeding together, so we just keep them as separate.
We played it safe.
And then in the fossil record, there's a lot of extinct creatures that we don't have today, and we find their fossils of them, but we can't see them interbreed because fossils don't breed. And so we suspect that there's far fewer kinds than we've really allowed for. And when you think about that, look, that in itself is a major teaching aspect, just that one thing. Yes. I brought one of the non-Christian leaders in our community down here one day. He wanted to come and see the Ark, and he's not a Christian. And as I walked up to the Ark with him, he looked at me and he looked at the Ark and he said, wow, I didn't realize Noah's Ark was so big. And then he looked at me and he said, you know, maybe Noah could have fit all those animals on board. So he got it straight away in just looking at it.
Yes. I hope that answered your questions about how many animals would have had to fit on the ark. It's a lot less than most people think, making the Bible story very, very possible. My friend, I believe the Bible story because I believe the Bible. I believe Jesus died for me. He talked about Noah. I have no trouble believing the story of Genesis, the story of the ark, the story of the flood. But the most important thing is for you to understand Jesus is the ark of salvation. There's a future judgment coming. There's hell for the individual people that don't believe in Jesus Christ. And then there's also a destruction of this world by fire in the future. Friends, you need salvation. I need salvation. Jesus is the ark of salvation. Believe in him, and you will not perish, but have everlasting life.